My name is Maria Hernandez. For some time, I have been exposing Santa Clara County corruption regarding social services, in-home supportive services in my website sccexposed.org, which stands for Santa Clara County Exposed, and which is currently down for reasons that I will explain to you as we continue with this video. So this is going to be a little bit long, but I beg you to please watch it in its entirety, because the information that I am presenting here affects you, not only as a taxpayer, but also as a voter, and may also affect you if you need or were to need access to IHSS services. For more than 15 months, I have known about criminal activity happening at Santa Clara County in-home supportive services. But after learning about threats made in County Board of Supervisors closed sessions about me and my husband, which were documented in an IHSS manager's work journal, I panicked and I have been keeping a low profile. All this time, I have been so terrified and concerned about my safety and the safety of my husband, to be honest. However, things have come to a point that knowing what is happening, knowing what I know, and how wrong this is, my conscience has given me the courage to speak up and to make this video recording for you. And hopefully you'll take the time to watch. I am doing this despite threats and possible additional retaliation against me and my family. The people that I am exposing are powerful and well-connected. They have the friendship, loyalty, and support of other highly respectable people in the community. The people that I am denouncing also has access to our tax dollars and to both county council and law enforcement to threaten, intimidate, and silence whistleblowers. In-home supportive services, also known as IHSS, for those of you who are not familiar, is a program that allows the elderly and people with disabilities to continue to live in their homes by providing assistance, among many other things. Although it is not a secret that for years IHSS under its current management has ranked near the bottom of the 58 counties in the state of California in client assessment compliance, which is a total failure, I have learned that some in-home supportive services applicants are intentionally left to suffer and in some cases die while they wait for their applications for services to be processed. There is very incriminated evidence of this criminal and despicable acts against the most vulnerable in our county, intentionally perpetrated by some IHSS managers, as one of these individuals wrote about it in his work journal, which the county is fiercely protecting. Your tax dollars are being used, they are being funneled to the county council for the defense of these criminal managers, to prevent the evidence from being exposed, and also to silence and threaten people like me for exposing the truth. Under the current County Board of Supervisors leadership, in-home supportive services management intentionally and deliberately has denied applications without giving them the proper review and consideration as required by the law. This has caused some of the most vulnerable to suffer and in some cases die without receiving any services despite of millions in annual funding from federal and state government. So when a low-income elderly or disabled person requires help to be able to keep living at their home or are at the end of life or sick, they apply for IHSS services. They may or may not qualify based on their ability to meet their required criteria. And therefore, it is understandable that not everyone who applies is going to qualify. However, what I am addressing here is the fact that applicants were automatically denied without being reviewed as required by the law. These applications were denied just because, according to the work journal of this IHSS manager, quote, it was the easiest. They decided to deny them all. Unquote. So cases were denied in bulk without review. It is a very damning fact that over the years, IHSS workers and whistleblowers, including myself, have publicly denounced IHSS managerial incompetence and corruption toward elected officials. But they have refused to act to protect seniors, the disabled, people of color, and IHSS workers who often face retaliation, harassment, and abuse at work for reporting misconduct and wrongdoing. In March 2019, 4 female IHSS workers met with Supervisor Cindy Chavez to denounce the chronic incompetence, corruption, hostile working conditions, and the lack of attention that Kingston Lum, Inessa Christie, and other IHSS managers gave to the expedited request of disabled, sick, or frail elders. Chavez, a self-proclaimed champion for children, seniors, women, and the disabled, people of color, and union workers, ignored the pleas for help by these IHSS workers and the suffering of IHSS victims. Not only were the whistleblowers ignored by Chavez, but immediately after their meeting with Chavez to denounce corruption and managerial incompetence to her, these whistleblowers faced increased retaliation, harassment, intimidation, and bullying at work, which forced one of these women into early retirement due to the fact that she could no longer endure the bullying at work, as well as the emotional stress of seeing neglected clients suffer and died because of the refusal of IHSS management to do something about it. The truth is that as the chair of the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee, Chavez has refused to do her job, and she has not provided oversight of the program, nor demanded accountability of the perpetrators of social services corrupt and chronically incompetent IHSS management, despite calls for accountability and investigations into IHSS management by both workers and county residents. In August 2019, Laura Tondo, an IHSS Program Services aide, after meeting with Chavez, she wrote a letter and copied her and all the other Board of Supervisors. In that letter, Tondo reiterated the horrible conditions at IHSS and the misuse of tax dollars. Tondo once more brought up to Chavez's attention issues which any law-abiding official who cares about government integrity, respect for taxpayers, respect for the law, and what is right, would have taken immediate attention by ordering an investigation into these allegations. Tondo informed Chavez that due to the increased bullying and harassment she was subjected to and the stress of seeing people suffer due to lack of attention, she was being forced into early retirement. Unfortunately, there was no response or acknowledgement from labor-endorsed Supervisor Chavez. On September the same year, my husband and I spoke at a Children, Seniors, and Families Committee public meeting presided by Cindy Chavez. Once more, Chavez failed to act and hold accountable these managers, thus condoning the continuous abuse of seniors, the disabled, and the most vulnerable in Santa Clara County. I have included that video in this presentation for you to watch.
Evan Dowling, Management Analyst. Supervisor Chavez, I addressed you at last week's Orchard City Indivisible meeting in Campbell as follows. In 2014, as you are aware, James Ramone demanded that I revise 104 public guardian policies and procedures within 5 weeks, an impossible task. In 2015, well after Mr. Ramone expelled me from the public guardian's office, He promised you at your committee meeting that all policies and procedures would be revised by the end of year 2015. 4 years later, in 2019, why have you never held Mr. Ramoni accountable for his disregard of the public welfare and contempt of civil grand juries by his failure to revise the overwhelming majority of these policies and procedures left over from County Public Guardian Don Moody, who Mr. Ramoni fired? I also asked, you are well aware of the failure of IHSS to serve the public welfare, as evidenced by their ranking 54th out of 58 counties in client reassessment compliance. You are well aware of the history of the toxic work environment in IHSS. As chair of your committee, why have you not held Mr. Minicucci and Mr. Ramoni accountable not only for their disregard of the public welfare, but also for their official misconduct and wrongdoing? To both questions, you replied that Robert Minicucci and James Ramoni do not report to you, and whatever concerns that you have, you confidentially share with County Executive Jeff Smith. Well, Supervisor Chavez, as chair, you're supposed to provide oversight and accountability. As whistleblowers, I, along with recently another employee, have provided the Board of Supervisors thousands of pages of evidence of official misconduct and wrongdoing involving Mr. Ramoni's department. And sadly, I have faced age discrimination and retaliation ever since. In fact, the Social Services Agency has a passion for combating age discrimination against older workers like myself with institutional history. Take, for instance, Laura Marina Atondo, who sent an August 30th, 2019 letter to you, Supervisor Chavez, where she reveals that organized bullying perpetrated by Mr. Ramoni's IHSS management drove her into early retirement at age 54. Note that occurred after she and her female co-workers, all over age 40, met with you, Supervisor Chavez, in March 2019 to plead for relief. So, Supervisor Chavez, why do you do your job? And why are you running for re-election? Is it because you want to do something, or is it simply because you want to be somebody? The county's toxic work environment has traumatized many county workers and their spouses. My trauma and Maria's trauma as survivors of this corruption are valid.
Thank you.
Maria Hernandez with SCCExposed.org, that stands for Santa Clara County Exposed.org. Overwhelming evidence demonstrates Robert Minicucci, James Ramoni, and Terry Posley are the epitome of incompetence, bullying, and all what is wrong with the county. Your double standard when it comes to enforcing the law is disgraceful, harmful to the most vulnerable in our county, and wasteful and highly disrespectful to Santa Clara County taxpayers. While the county is enforcing degrees and testing for workers, Mr. Minicucci only has a BA degree. Yet, he supervises many workers with PhDs, master's degrees, and with far more experience than he has. Now, let's talk about James Ramoni. He has a long track record of bullying, incompetence, and disregard of the public welfare, with now some information pointing at mismanagement on conservators and their assets. But despite of all that, and you all being aware of this, you keep kissing up to him and promoting him and protecting him at the expense of Santa Clara County taxpayers. That includes a lawsuit settlement that you paid to my husband for all the bullying that he has endured there. Now let's talk about Terry Posley. Well, she's a program manager at IHSS. What can be expected of a woman whose only verifiable qualification, according to many IHSS workers, is to be a loyalist and a puppet of Mr. Ramoni? No wonder why Social Services Agency is a failure, despite of your high publicity and millions of our tax dollars invested in supporting it. IHSS has fallen out of state client reassessment compliance. The Department of Aging and Adult Services has multiple violations and offenses regarding conservative care and management of their assets. The evidence of criminal activity perpetrated by James Ramoni's department is overwhelming and shameful. As reported to you and the whistleblower office by a conservator, multiple abuses and neglect of conservatives are happening under Mr. Ramoni's leadership. When
are you, as elected officials, going to stop condoning such incompetence, abuse, and neglect of Santa Clara County seniors? It's not about publicity, it's about deeds. And your deeds, your actions leave so much to desire. There are so many things that are wrong with this. How is it possible that conservatives are not being taken care of? Many of them are not being taken to doctor's appointments, and you know that. You know that because the whistleblower person submitted that, and the whistleblower person sent me also information about what is going on. And you just keep promoting him and rewarding him. Shame, shame, shame on you.
On June 18, 2020, after receiving no response or action nor support from Cindy Chavez and the Board of Supervisors, Atondo and 3 other IHSS older female workers filed a lawsuit against Santa Clara County's IHSS management. Their declarations are shocking and shed incredible light in the highly corrupt IHSS management, as well as the suffering of IHSS applicants, some of whom have died while waiting for services. The facts described in the lawsuit are very telling and revealing regarding the failure of our elected officials to respond and do anything to address this corruption and mismanagement. This lawsuit documents, so among the things that it documents is that dead or former IHSS workers are being assigned cases. No wonder why applications, in addition to being intentionally denied, they are not being processed. And IHSS currently ranks 56 out of 58 counties in client reassessment compliance. That lawsuit also exposes the chronic incompetence, lack of support, inability and or unwillingness to meet the needs of the most vulnerable in Santa Clara County. It exposes the promotion of unqualified individuals to positions of power, which require knowledge, compassion, and prompt response to address the needs of seniors, the disabled, and people requiring hospice care. So after their meeting with Supervisor Cindy Chavez on March 2019, none of the concerns that these women brought up to Cindy Chavez's attention was ever addressed. None of their claims was ever investigated, and nothing was done with regards to the problems and the concerns that were presented to Cindy Chavez during that meeting. However, these women, after meeting with Cindy Chavez, they faced increased bullying, harassment, and retaliation at the workplace. That usually happens to workers that go and speak about mismanagement, or speak about hostile work environment, or denounce county corruption. Usually they are bullied, harassed, and the pressure at work becomes so unbearable that many of them, they are forced into retirement. And in some cases, if they have the courage to stay there, they are terminated by the county. So after nothing got done, these women filed a lawsuit. As you can see there, they filed a lawsuit on June 18, 2020. I want us to go over this lawsuit, which is a public record, so you can see the severity of what is being exposed by these 4 whistleblowers. So there's a description I'm going to read to you from some of the highlighted parts. So PSAs stands for Program Services Aid. That is the title, the job description of these women. They are assigned applicants on a daily basis who are either being discharged from the hospital or are currently on hospice care and or need help while at home. So as you can see, this is a very important job, and the well-being of the well-being and the care of the most vulnerable in Santa Clara County depends on the efficiency and the quality of services that they receive at the hands of IHSS. In addition, requests for emergency assistance are received. So they have like regular applications that are for people that need help to help them keep living in their homes, and then they have expedited or emergency assistance requests. They are requests for elders being discharged from hospitals with no place to go, requests for caregivers from homebound elders who cannot care for themselves, and for hospice care at the end of life. As experienced by Atondo and the other plaintiffs, I'm sure there are many other workers that could say the same thing. The AR unit management was unable or unwilling to deal with the expedite request in a timely fashion. So let's go over that. As experienced by Atondo and the other plaintiffs, the AR unit management was unable. Listen to the word unable. If that's unable, we are talking about incompetence. We are talking about government incompetence. Those people shouldn't be at work. If you are unable to do your job, and that has been going on for years and years and years, we are talking about incompetence, about people not being able to perform their duties as expected. Or unwilling, if we are talking about someone unwilling to do the job, is that they are able, but they don't want to do their job. That is criminal. If you are refusing to do your job, especially in a position where you are serving the most vulnerable and people's lives and well-being depends on you doing your job, but you're unwilling to do it, that is criminal. So the management was unable or unwilling to deal with the expedited request. So we're talking about things not getting done. So services not being provided by those people to those in need. So this inability or unwillingness persisted, notwithstanding the complaints of these plaintiffs. So there's just so much that a worker in that position can do. So you do, and you report it. And you, in this case, they went a step ahead and they met with an elected official. Remember, accountability trickles down. So they went to the top, because you go and you talk to a supervisor, it's not doing nothing. You talk to the boss of the boss and nothing happens. So you end up at the top of the chain, which is our elected officials. And again, nothing happened. So based upon her experience, I continue to read to you. Based upon her experience, Atondo estimates each year on average 10 expedite applicants or more passed away before getting the service they requested. So again, we are just talking, in this case, is just the testimony of one of those women, Atondo. There's 3 more people in this lawsuit, and every one of them have declarations. And they express what has been their experience dealing with IHSS management. So this is very important. I have highlighted it in green. In February 2019, Atondo got in touch with former Santa Clara County Supervisor James Bill. So James Bill, for those of you who may not know, Lara Atondo used to work for him. She was a staffer when he was a county supervisor. He recently termed out as a California State Senator and was replaced by Dave Cortese. Keep reading. Atondo begged Bill to intercede on behalf of Atondo and her fellow PSAs. Atondo said, "Help, we are being harassed by our supervisor, Inessa Christie." Bill obliged and contacted County Supervisor Chavez. So this is how the meeting took place. It was an intervention through James Bill. So I'm reading the next paragraph. A meeting between Chavez and Atondo, along with Brown, Carrillo, and Vizcarra, was scheduled for March 15, 2019. At the meeting with Chavez, this is very, very important. At the meeting with Chavez, and I'm reading to you the highlighted paragraph, the highlighted lines. The 4 plaintiffs also decried the lack of attention that Christie, Lum, and the other managers gave to the expedited cases of the disabled and sick and frail elders. So, Board of Supervisors Cindy Chavez was informed of the situation at in-home supportive services by these women. Also, please note that Chavez and the Board of Supervisors have known all this time about the managerial incompetence and corruption in IHSS social workers and whistleblowers have publicly spoken during Board of Supervisors meetings on the subject. But again, nothing has been done. In the meantime, victims are suffering and in some cases they are dying in neglect and their families are experiencing incredible mental stress, pain, and trauma. So let's continue checking this. So I read to you again. Following the plaintiff's meeting with County Supervisor Chavez, the meetings between Atondo and Christie became even more tense. This is not surprising. This is disgraceful but not surprising. Santa Clara County has a track record of harassing whistleblowers and workers that speak up the truth. Whistleblowers in the County of Santa Clara are often faced with increased harassment, bullying, and retaliation at the workplace after reporting misconduct and wrongdoing. So, on May 2019, and continue reading to you, Atondo was assisting a family who had a relative that had placed an expedited request for end-of-life hospice care. So I just cannot imagine the tremendous stress that that the family of that dying person was going through. They placed an expedited request. And the family repeatedly called Atondo's direct line at work for a status update since they had not heard back from IHSS office. So this managerial incompetence or negligence not only affects the victims, their loved ones, but also the workers, because the workers, can you imagine the amount of stress having to deal with that situation and being unable to help those people? Atondo found that the applicant's paperwork at the bottom of a large in basket where the PSAs placed expedited cases for the supervisor for review. Atondo is informed and believes the patient who sought hospice did not receive a visit from a social worker. The applicant died in July 16, 2019 without receiving hospice care. I'm going to continue to read to you. This plaintiff, by August 2019, Atondo's blood pressure had again increased to dangerous levels. Remember that by August 2019, Laura Atondo, she wrote a letter to Cindy Chavez, directly to Cindy Chavez. It was addressed to all the Board of Supervisors, but it was sent to Cindy Chavez and her office. So by then, Laura Atondo, she is physically sick, that she had to choose between her life and her job. So this reads, this plaintiff was no longer physically able to bear the harassment by Christie, nor could she any longer accept the manifest refusal of the management IHSS to adequately address the needs of elders and disabled people seeking expedited assistance. Given the circumstances, Atondo was constructively discharged from employment on August 31st, 2009. She was forced into early retirement. This individual, this person, couldn't take the stress not only of being harassed at work, couldn't take the stress of seeing people die and nothing being done about it. Let's keep checking. So again, you're welcome to see this online. It's a public record. But right now I'm reading you some main points. This is testimonies, a declaration from another defendant, from another plaintiff, Mona Brown. In the internal records that the defendant county maintains to document the work of the AR unit, names of employees who have left the county or have moved to another work unit are maintained and appear to perform work, even though they are no longer present and working in the AR unit or the IHSS. What? So they have names of people that are no longer working there, and are those people being assigned cases? Well, let's keep reading. In one instance, an employee who had died was carried on the books as if he were still working and serving clients. This needs to be investigated. So is this, well, first of all, no wonder why client applications are not being processed. They are being given to dead people. This needs to be investigated. Why is this okay with Cindy Chavez and the Board of Supervisors? This is illegal. This is a crime. This must be investigated. Are these dead, no longer employed individuals still being paid? If that is the case, that's a crime. If these people are being paid, but the work is being done by other workers, that is wage theft to the workers who are actually doing the work. Oh, and this is happening in a county that prides itself on being a champion of workers and who fights wage theft. So I'm reading again. Brown estimates that between 1 and 2 applicants she has encountered die each year waiting for services that should have but were not provided pursuant to expedited request. So this is the testimony of Catherine Carrillo. So Carrillo writes, the lawsuit states, the workload carried by Carrillo and the other PSAs is large. Dealing with the applicants is emotionally intense, as many of the applicants are not only disabled or very sick, but often are in desperate need of assistance. Frequently, patients would die while waiting for their expedited claims to be addressed due to backlog. Why? Again, why is Chavez and the Board of Supervisors okay with IHSS chronic failure, which is hurting the most vulnerable? The supervisors, they haven't even looked into the allegations by these women. Why, instead of using our tax dollars to defend these managers, why this is not being investigated? Why is Chavez, a self-proclaimed women's champion and labor-endorsed candidate, condoning this despicable cruelty and the unjustifiable chronic corruption and incompetence in IHSS? You know, in a shocking statement in his work journal, Kingston Lum writes about him and Inessa Christie intentionally denying applications without any proper review, just because they refuse to do their job. This is criminal. Aldo County Council, this is what is shocking. Aldo County Council first denied the existence of Kingston Lum's journals. Once faced with the evidence, they are now furiously fighting to keep this from the public. So I'm going to read this line in the paragraph 78. Carrillo was under a great deal of stress, both from the amount of work but from interaction with clients, particularly those with terminal illnesses or elders, disabled applicants who applied months ago to IHSS. She would get calls from adult children saying, "My mother or father is very sick. They need help. We applied 5 months ago and no one from IHSS has contacted us about the application." But because she faced an insurmountable backlog of applicants, Carrillo was in tears. I mean, I just feel terrible for these women because they had to be the face. They had to deal with the applicants and their families, and they saw their suffering. They have for years seen the suffering and the stress, and these people go through, and there's nothing they can do because their concerns are not addressed. They are ignored. And they had their concerns, bringing them publicly, that brought them to this point where they had to resort to a lawsuit against the County of Santa Clara. this reminds me of the bullying and the firing of other whistleblowers like Dr. Jan Weber and Dr. Dean Winslow. So it's cookie cutter approach. We have a serious problem in Santa Clara County. We have chronic corruption, and this is unacceptable. So when Carrillo brought this to LUM's attention, LUM responded by remanding Carrillo to tell applicants that, quote, "we are not an emergency program," unquote. At the time, LUM refused to provide additional help. Why is the County of Santa Clara allowing managers like Kingston LUM to remain in their job? They know very well that Kingston LUM has not only refused to provide additional help to IHSS and has not addressed any of the concerns brought up to his attention, but it's also, there's evidence of his work journals where he's writing about intentionally denying services to people, denying applications without any review, just because he felt it's the easiest thing to do. In Santa Clara County, loyalty, camaraderie, nepotism, cronyism is what this defines, is what allows certain people to get to certain positions, not their qualifications, but who they know and their loyalty in many cases. So that results in people being in positions of power that they are not qualified. So in the role here, I'm going to read you this. In the role of eligibility worker, Supervisor Robertson, I guess that's another supervisor, was responsible for making decisions as to whether applicants receive services. Due to her lack of experience and/or lack of training, Robertson did not devote the requisite attention to the applications for service from potential clients. So that's what happens when you have unqualified people. So why is the county more interested in keeping loyalists than in doing the right thing for the people they are supposed to serve? In 2017, an individual submitted an application for services on behalf of her son who had autism. So this person went all the way from December and starting February 2018 and continue into early May of that year. The applicant left numerous voicemail messages for several employees, mostly Supervisor Robinson, whose job was to approve the application and to assign it to social workers. No one called the applicant back. So when this IHSS worker investigated, I'm reading to you. The application, which had at one point been on Robertson's desk, was lost. Vizcarra had to tell the applicant the application had been lost and the paperwork had to be resubmitted. The applicant was understandably upset. So this person makes a statement saying trying to get service for people with disabilities should not be this hard and time-consuming. It has made me wonder how many applications they lose, and the people who can't speak English just simply go away. This really hits hard, really close to my heart, because as a Hispanic and Latina, I know that many of us, we are shy, we are in some cases embarrassed to ask for help. So I cannot help to wonder how much this terrible incompetence and negligence has affected many Hispanic, many Latino people, many immigrants, people that, like me, English is their second language. So this is a valid and highly concerning statement. How many more victims IHSS managerial incompetence is going to take? So So I'm gonna finish this by reading you this line. The purpose of the plaintiffs in meeting with County Supervisor Chavez was for the plaintiffs to complain of several personal practices in the workplace. So there is no excuse. There is no excuse. Board of Supervisor and candidate for mayor of San Jose, Cindy Chavez, knows the problem, but she has chosen to ignore it. Not only has she and the Board of Supervisors turned a blind eye into IHSS management's incompetence and corruption, but they are allowing the misuse of millions of tax dollars to defend these managers and silence this and any other pending lawsuits that expose the county's criminal activity. Perhaps the most incriminating and despicable part in all of this is that work journals from Kingston Lum Social Services Program Manager 1 and the same individual that these 4 IHSS workers reported to Chavez. In his journal, he reveals that he and Inessa Christie, eligibility worker supervisor, they met to discuss whether to reassign or deny cases, quote, but since it was the easiest, we decided to deny all of them, unquote. This is criminal. This is absolutely despicable. I mean, how many other things are happening that these people are getting away with? So, although initially County Council firstly denied the existence of alum journals during the depositions with the law firms, attorneys representing the plaintiffs, once presented with the evidence, County Council is fiercely fighting to prevent this from going public. They are calling LUM's work journals county property. Wow. If this is county property, the County of Santa Clara has some serious explaining to do. They have a serious problem that demands a criminal investigation. God knows what else is being protected. Instead of, well, you need to remember that in Board of Supervisors closed sessions, away from the public and public scrutiny, County Council, the elected officials, and other county officials, they discuss lawsuits against the county. So these people are well aware of what is being presented. But instead of immediately terminating Lump and Christie and opening an internal investigation, Cindy Chavez, who is currently running for San Jose mayor, and along with the Board of Supervisors, they are funneling millions of tax dollars into County Council to protect Christie, to defend Christie from the lawsuit by Atondo and other IHSS whistleblowers, as well as Lum's journals, in which Lum details criminal activity that has caused harm, suffering, and overwhelming stress and pain to vulnerable victims and their loved ones. I mean, this issue is one of many other things that this criminal individual is writing in his work journal. There is so much more. He needs to be investigated. The county IHSS needs to be investigated. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned to you that I have been exposing county corruption at in-home supportive services in Santa Clara County in my website, sccexposed.org. And I told you that my website is currently down. Well, this is the reason why my website has been down. In closed sessions, this individual from the same, in the same journals, this IHSS manager writes that in closed sessions with a Board of Supervisors, they have asked why something hasn't been done to ED, that is my husband, plus his wife, that would be me. And as you can see from the video that I previously showed about us publicly speaking and exposing county corruption and right to Cindy Chavez, I mean, it's not like we are attacking on the back. It's not like we are acting in bad faith. We are just exposing. We've been exposing what is wrong, and we're exposing things that shouldn't be happening in a progressive county like Santa Clara County. Well, that is the response. That is a county supervisor response, and it's very telling. It is shocking. I just couldn't believe it. When I learned about this, I was sick to my stomach. You really have no idea the shock and disbelief. I knew that they didn't like us speaking the truth, exposing corruption, because many of those elected officials have turned a blind eye for years to the public. They go and they say that they are doing this and that, and the reality is other. But because many people don't watch the public board of supervisors meetings, many people don't have an idea what is actually happening in our local government. The local news media, in many cases, they refuse. If they get the evidence, they will be like, oh, you know what, there is not enough, we need to investigate. And that is a delayed tactic to prevent the information from going out. In some other cases, they won't even, they just totally refuse to write about it, to present it to you. So the voices of people like me, the voices of those who are exposing what is wrong with the county and exposing criminal activity, they get drowned. We get silenced. It has been shocking to learn how our elected officials deal with whistleblowers. It is shocking to learn that the county board what the county board of supervisors closed sessions are about. I mean, many of us know that they get in closed sessions. I never knew that closed sessions are about this. I mean, if something like this is being discussed, I can only imagine what else is being discussed, because I know that I am not the only person who has exposed corruption. I am not the only my husband was not the only worker. It's not the only worker exposing corruption. You may remember Dr. Dean Winslow and Dr. John Weber, who have exposed county corruption, and both got fired. You're aware of, many of you are aware of the situation right now happening at Valley Medical Center. So we have a really highly dysfunctional government. And this has been happening for years and years. I mean, how more can people take? There is, honestly, I believe there is better use to our tax dollars than covering up these crimes and this corruption that is harming people. So, usually I don't get intimidated that easily, but when I read about this, when I learned about this, I have been afraid for my life and the lives of my family. You know, this is something that you see in authoritarian regimes. This is something that you see in places like Russia, places like North Korea, places that countries that they don't believe in democracy. So how is this happening here in Santa Clara County, and why people are turning a blind eye? I mean, there are plenty of people that know about this outside the system, but they have chosen to remain silent. Silencing dissent and whistleblowers are something that authoritarian regimes and anti-democratic governments do. So it is deeply troubling to learn, based on documented evidence, that our elected officials in closed sessions have conspired to harm whistleblowers in order to silence them. This is shocking, hard to believe, but it is happening here in Santa Clara County. The seriousness of this matter and the intentional harm caused to the most vulnerable demand a criminal investigation into the County of Santa Clara and Kingston Lom, based on volumes of evidence, including his own work journals, which details extensive and intentional criminal activity. Therefore, this evidence must be turned over to the Department of Justice for investigation. The county needs to stop protecting it and using our tax dollars to do so. There must be an investigation as to why Lom, Christie, and other IHSS managers have not been terminated and prosecuted for their actions. There must be an investigation as to why our tax dollars are being used to defend these criminals and to try to prevent the truth from being exposed. There must be an investigation into why our elected officials are allowing the bullying, harassment, and intimidation of workers and the public who report criminal activity. These public officials have failed to abide by, respect, uphold, and follow the law. With their actions, they have violated the trust of the people who they are supposed to serve. The reality is that justice for IHSS victims has been elusive. The fact is that since lawsuits against the County of Santa Clara are discussed in closed sessions, away from public knowledge and scrutiny, just between the elected officials and county officials, including county council, there is no accountability. It is clear that the Board of Supervisors has chosen to protect bad managers and their criminal acts that have intentionally hurt seniors, people with disabilities, people of color, and the most vulnerable in our county. It is despicable that instead of immediately terminating these managers and opening investigations into IHSS management, our elected officials have chosen to sweep the wrongdoing and corruption under the rug. The truth in Santa Clara County is often silenced, and facts are twisted and distorted. People like me, who exposes wrongdoing and government corruption perpetrated and or condoned by public officials, are often accused of harassment and intimidation of these same public officials, believe it or not. And such accusations are made just for speaking the truth. For this reason, many workers and members of the public who know about this corruption choose to remain silent. Sadly, this hardly ever gets reported by the local news media, who many of them just tend to turn a blind eye. It should be concerning to all of those who value freedom of speech, truth, and integrity in government that such actions are happening in Santa Clara County. I am speaking up because these crimes must be exposed. I have seen what the county does to whistleblowers, yet the truth must be exposed. This could be your loved ones. This could be you, your child, your mom or dad, or a family member. This could be a friend or someone that you love and deeply care about. They could be in this terrible situation that these victims are enduring right now. Atrocities like this will continue to happen if these elected officials and IHSS managers are not held accountable. Please know that it is very hard for whistleblowers to speak up when they face harassment, bullying, threats, and retaliation at work. It is hard for justice to prevail when in closed sessions or elected officials are illegally conspiring to harm those who dare to speak up the truth. It is hard for justice to prevail when the budget of organizations working to achieve justice rely on county funding. It is hard for justice to prevail when people refuse to hear the truth. It is hard for justice to prevail when the people you are exposing has unlimited resources, loyalty, connections, and a cult-like following of people that will justify any and all official misconduct and wrongdoing. After years of speaking up at public board of supervisors meetings and exposing county corruption, I have learned that I am not safe. And probably after exposing this evidence of criminal activity to you, my family and I will be in danger. In 2019, I tried to expose county corruption at a meeting at OCI, Orchard City Indivisible, a progressive group in Campbell that fights for justice. But those of us who spoke up and tried to expose wrongdoing were silenced and met with rage, profanity, and scorn by some of their members, once they learned that the people we were exposing were their friends and favorite politicians. It is hard for victims to get justice when the DA in charge of prosecuting crimes at the county level has endorsed Cindy Chavez for mayor, who is named in the lawsuit. Sadly, it makes it impossible for victims to trust the justice system and demand accountability when the California Attorney General has also endorsed Cindy Chavez. People are dying. Good workers are being silenced, and your tax dollars are being used to pay for all this corruption, abuse of power, and criminal negligence that is hurting the most vulnerable in our county. Desmond Tutu famously said, "If you see injustice and remain silent, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." I presented this evidence to the San Jose Spotlight, but incredibly, according to them, there is not enough evidence that merits publication. It doesn't matter. I am speaking up for these victims, and I hope that you will join me by sharing this message and demanding an investigation into these serious crimes. Thank you. Thank you for listening.